people would jump on and say, I do this, I say that, I say this. And I literally have on my notes app, I have Solarpreneur podcast, right? And I have a bunch of notes there, everything I've learned. So I would highly recommend listeners do that. Open up your notes app right now. Start typing down whatever you think is interesting, right?
Okay, what's going on, everybody? We're filming a pretty unique podcast here. I gotta say, this is the first time I've done a podcast. We're literally sitting in a Cadillac right now in the back seat and just ready to rip a podcast. So we got someone that has a really unique story. He's going to share with our audience and just overcome a lot of crazy obstacles. Super young guy, already having tons of success. So we're going to welcome Thierry Boutros. Saying that right?
Yeah, there you go.
So yeah, man, thanks for coming on the show with us today.
Thanks for having me. It's truly an honor. I've been listening to your podcast for forever now. It's been, I don't know, 2 to 3 years ever since I started Solar. I've been listening to the podcast. So to be on it now it's an honor, truly.
Yeah, thank you. I'd love to hear that, brother.
Yeah.
And yeah, always cool. You know, you never know the people that will connect with the stories you share or listen to podcasts. So, and I know, I think a lot of people are going to connect with you, what you have to share on the show with us today.
Definitely.
So, excited to get into it, man. But we're here at SolarCon, and we, like I said, pretty unique setup we got here. Just ran to one of these booths. They got this car. We're doing podcasting. So hopefully people were able to come to SolarCon. But what you think of I guess it's just starting here, but what are your first impressions of the event so far?
It's my first time at SolarCon, so truly amazing. I did not think it would be that much, that many companies, that many, there's everything over here, I expected it to be just maybe a bunch of installers, maybe a couple of finance companies, but there's really everything you can think of. I mean, all kinds of things. So it's interesting to see how I'm going to be able to kind of benefit from this and grow the business through that. I've never really gone to a convention or a conference for solar yet. So this is going to be exciting over the next 3 days, see what we're going to achieve from that and how we're going to improve.
Yeah, for sure. So, I want to get into your story, man. And, we were just talking before we hit record here about some of the highlights. But you've got crazy how you got into solar. I know, burned by a few companies and just coming here from a different country. And this guy, he's only 22. He's already been through all this stuff. And I'm like, dude, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So, we're going to be getting to, I think your story is going to be really unique for our listeners, but then just how you've been able to start your own dealer. Your company is a BPI, right?
BPI, yep. Pure Power Innovations.
Okay.
Yep. So
I'm out of California, so we'll get into all that. But do you want to give us let's start from the beginning, your upbringing, where you're from, all that. That's it.
Yep. So I'm originally from the Middle East. I'm from Lebanon.
Okay.
I finished high school out there and then moved over here for college after there was a huge bombing that happened in Beirut. I don't know if you heard about that or if you look it up. August 4th, 2020. Huge bombing. It was absurd. It feels like it's straight out of Call of Duty. If you look up the videos, I recommend you guys look it up. It was crazy. And so 2-3 days after that, I left, came here for college. I went to UCLA studying mechanical engineering. It's always been kind of how I was set up by my parents, study well, do good. I was fast valedictorian, all of that good stuff. And if you do well, it was always in my mind that, okay, study, do good, you'll get a good job. That's how you succeed.
Yeah.
And so I always had that mindset where I came to college, I was really grinding mechanical engineering. And at the time I was working part-time, to cover rent, part of my tuition, all of that good stuff. And as I was working part-time, I was at AT&T doing sales, right? And so I was part-time and I was pulling more numbers than all the full-timers at my store at AT&T. Wow. And so I realized, okay, I've got something for sales, right? There's something that I'm doing that's right. At the time, AT&T doesn't really teach you too much about sales. It's more like they teach you about the product, right? But for some reason, I was succeeding. I was doing great.
Yeah.
And so at the time, they wanted me to work more, and I couldn't. I was in school. I thought to myself, again, everything was about school for me, right? Everything else was a side thing, and then school was the main thing, right? So I quit AT&T. I was on Indeed looking for a job, and I come across this solar job. And I was like, right, like this looks pretty cool. You know, it says you can make hundreds of thousands and, you know, you're not going to have to work barely any time, like all that good stuff. Like, this sounds lit, you know? I mean, I knew it was in my head, I was like, too good to be true, right? But I just also thought, if I don't check it out, I mean, I'm going to regret it, because I'm always going to think there was something there. And I just, you know, I had to prove that it was wrong. That's the mindset I had. I was like, if I can prove that it's wrong, then, you know, okay, then I'll be fine with it. I'll continue school, do what I was always supposed to do, right? Went over to the office. It was like a dealer back in Los Angeles, and they had a pretty cool office. And that's what sold me, to be honest. It was just the office. Yeah, so cool. They had like a pool table, ping pong table, like hoops, you know, foosball, like everything, right? I was like, okay, this sounds pretty cool. Like, the people were cool. I was like, okay, I kind of like the situation. It talked about how there's no like time commitment, really, stuff like that, which I will say later down the road, I realized is not the best way to do it, because no proper expectations were set whatsoever for me. So I think we talk so much about setting proper expectations with homeowners, but with recruits, we never do, right? I mean, or at least that's how I was recruited. None of the expectations were set properly, and it was so off. And I was like, okay, this doesn't make sense, right? There's nothing that's working here. So I worked with that dealer for about 3-4 months. I was knocking, pulling appointments. At the time, that dealer wasn't even doing PPAs, right? So I would barely get any closes. I got like one close off of maybe 25 appointments or something. I was like, this doesn't make sense. Like, this isn't real, right? And at the time, a bunch of people from that company decided to branch out, go to another company, and start doing PPAs. I was like, okay, maybe that's the way to go, right? And at the time, I was really like, you know, but I was in school again. Like, the solar was just a side thing for me. And I was knocking doors, just like, okay, perfect. Like, just go twice a week, knock some doors, you know?
Did they tell you you're going to be knocking doors, or they left that part out there?
No, they kind of brought it up as in like, but they made it like a slight integration. You're like, oh, you might knock some doors to get some leads. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, right, exactly. Which I didn't know the whole job is pretty much knocking doors when I first started, right? And so I said, okay, we moved on to the next company, started working there, and they needed some closer there. Right. I was setting pretty well. I had mastered setting, even though I wasn't getting too many closes, because it wasn't me closing. I wasn't closing anything. Right. So I literally decided, okay, I'm going to teach myself how to close, because none of the people in my company really had that experience in closing, I would say. And so I said, I'm going to teach myself. And that's when I jumped on your podcast, actually. Like, literally, it was your podcast that changed the game for me. Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, you deserve the credit, because I started listening. And I went back in time, because obviously you already had a bunch of episodes. I started listening to all these different podcasts, and people would jump on and say, I do this, I say that, I say this. And I literally have on my notes app, I have Solarpreneur podcast, right? And I have a bunch of notes there of everything I've learned. So I would highly recommend listeners to do that. Open up your notes app right now. Start typing down whatever you think is interesting, right? Because it changed the game for me. I started learning, okay, if I say this, I can overcome this objection. If I say that, I can overcome this. And by myself, I found out, okay, I need a license for this. And I went, okay, HIS license, applied for that. And so started closing, and I became a crazy closer. My first month, I remember. So what happened is we didn't have any setters. And I was at school, didn't have too much time to knock, because I was focused more on closing. So I had $1,500 in my bank account. I had rent, tuition, all of that. And I thought to myself, this is it. It's a make it or break it. 1,500 isn't going to make a day for me. Maybe that's a month's rent, right? I'm just going to take that and invest it into leads or a call center or something like that, right? And I thought to myself, if I can make that happen, this will change the game. I think that was a turning point for me. There's that, I feel like every person has that one turning point where it's like everything changes, and that was it for me. I was sitting in my engineering library, literally at school at UCLA, and I'm sitting there, I'm doing my homework, and I had been talking to a bunch of call center, like stuff like that, and I said, okay, I'm gonna pull the trigger on this, right?
Wow.
$1,500.
Hey, you got gas.
Yeah.
Your last savings.
It was the last of it. And I said, this is it. This is the moment to make it or break it, right? I put the money in. It was February. And that first month, I started closing deal after the other, and I saw my commissions, and I'm like, wow. And it was all in the pipeline. I hadn't made any of the money yet, right? But I was like, okay, this is crazy. I was by like the end of the month, like February 20th or something, I was at about 60,000. And at the time, the owner of the other dealer, he looked at me and was like, you're doing great. Ride the momentum, hit 100. And I was like, I don't know if I can, I don't know, but he hyped me up so much. He was good. That's one thing he was really good at. He was kind of like my mentor in this, self-improvement, believing in yourself. Yeah. So he said, hit 100. And I pushed so hard, and I ended up hitting 101K on the dot. And I was like, wow, truly life-changing. It was my first month. Obviously, at the end of the day, not all of them went to install. You've got some that, permits didn't work out, or unpermitted structures, stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I ended up making maybe about 80,000 off of that 1 month. And I was like,
that's crazy.
Wow, yeah. I was 19 at the time, and I'm like, this is crazy. This can't be real, And I had I started getting paid, all of that. Because, with solar, you've got that little time frame, 2 to 3 months, where you're waiting for installs. And I was like, this is real. Like, I literally look at my bank account. I'm like, this is real numbers, right? And that's when I decided, okay, I'm going to change the game completely and put myself 100% into this. That's when I took the focus a little away from school, even though I was a senior, or like junior, like end of junior year. I had my senior year. I'd already put in so much into school. I decided I'm still going to make it happen. I still got my degree. I got a mechanical engineering degree. Wow. Yeah. Incredible. Yeah. I don't even do anything with it now.
You can sell the engineers. Those are toughest customers.
Exactly.
You can connect with those people.
It is. And it helps a lot, actually. And, some of them, they look at me and they're like, well, you're just a salesperson. Like, you're not. I'm like, well, I'm going to show you my UCLA card. And I always have it on me, and I pull it out. And I'm like, here you go. Like, this is my UCLA Bruin card. Like, look at it, right? And they're like, oh, okay. And it changes everything for them, because that's where the trust starts to build, because you were talking about my age, right? My age has been such a huge obstacle, I would say, at least for me, especially after founding like a dealer company. Try to recruit, people look at me, they're like, this guy's 22, like, this is a joke, right? But so they really start listening to what I say. They see that I've learned and I've taken everything. And I do think school helped with that, because I was so used to listening to lectures, taking notes, and learning, right?
Yes, it's great.
And so I did the same thing with solar, right? Did my research, learned, wrote down notes, flashcards, everything, and I learned from everything.
That's so good.
Yeah, and that's why I think I improved so quickly. It's because I really put the time into it from an educational perspective, rather than just like, okay, like experience, and I'm going to do it and see how it goes, right? I put in the actual education into it, which I feel like a lot of people in solar are still missing, where they come into it and they treat it as strictly sales, when there is an education level to it, right? Where you have to put in the time and say, I'm going to sit down and read this stuff and learn what's going on in the industry, what's happening. Let me Google. ChatGPT. Oh my God, that's like my best friend, right? I just go on there all the time and I look up what's happening with this, what's going to happen with that, which panels are better, which batteries are better, because most installers have a bunch of different panels and batteries, but why do we choose the ones that we choose, right? Some people want to know about that. You've got your typical sale where there's people that are like, show me savings and that's it, and they'll sign up, right? Great. Those are easy sales. But then you've got the real money makers, are where you really show them that you know what you're talking about. You know the batteries, you know what they're composed of, you know everything. At least for California, obviously we need batteries, but it changes the game. And you start getting so many referrals from that, stuff like that. But then what ended up happening is I did great. I was working for like 6 months and I got screwed over by my installer. Big time. I had about 250, maybe 300,000 in the pipeline, and all gone. And I'm talking, those are installed deals.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Like, not even just, closed deals. They never even went to install. Those are installed deals and just gone, and I was like, that was a big hit for me. That was a moment. That was a moment where I was like, this sucks. I don't know if I even want to keep on doing this. At the time I was about to graduate, and in my head I was like, okay, the self-doubt started trickling in. You know how it is with self-doubt. I mean, self-doubt is, I think, to me, is the biggest challenge in solar. I don't think it's the sales. I don't think it's to me, at least, the door knocking, nothing like that. The mental toll, it's just self-doubt for me because I was so raised to learn that, okay, you're going to finish school, go get a job, climb the ladder. And that's how you're going to make your $150,000, $200,000 a year, right? And so I was like, okay, maybe I should just stick to engineering. This is it, right? Like I should maybe switch up, go back to, I was still in school. Obviously I was about to get my degree. I was like, go back to this, start applying for jobs. And I did. I applied for some jobs and dude, I got my offers and I was like, in my 1 year of working solar part-time as a closer, right? I made almost 3 times what my largest offer was from engineering. And I was like, well, even though I got technically screwed over at the end of the day out of some money, if I really count the money that I've already made,
it's still more than what you'd make.
Exactly. It's still 3 times more. And I was like, I mean, at that point, there's just no debate here. Right? And I said, stopped applying. I was like, I'm done. I'm just going to take this fully to the next level. Take it super seriously. I jumped into solar fully. And that's when I said, yep, started looking at solars. That's where I decided I want to start my own dealer because I got screwed over so many times. So I got screwed over the first time by the door knocking company. And then after that, by the company, I switched over to all of my boys at that company. Believe it or not, they ended up leaving solar because of what happened with the installer. Yeah, like every single one of them. I'm still in touch with some of them and I obviously talk to them still, but they all left. They ended up doing, life insurance and pest control, stuff like that, right? And they all left and I was the last man standing. And I was like, okay, if every single person that went through this in solar decides I'm out, then how are these people succeeding? And I would listen to your podcast again and again and go on these YouTube videos and, Michael O'Donnell, and you've got the big players, right? And you're like, okay, I mean, they have to be doing something different. They're succeeding with this and they're making it happen, right? And so I was like, okay, if I really put the focus into this, figure out how to market, how to actually get leads, solidify my leads, get the proper appointments, confirm appointments. So before we used to never really confirm, right? Like we'd set appointments, say, all right, we're just going to show up. We get 1 every 10 appointments. That's it. Like this doesn't make sense. There's something wrong here. I feel like I was taught the biggest obstacles with kind of starting my own thing is saying, okay, I'm gonna change everything I learned, kind of forget it all and start from scratch. What would I do differently to make it work better? Right. And so that's why I started saying, okay, branding is a big thing. I started wanting to brand my company rather than just say, okay, we're a solar company, right? Because I feel like so many reps out there, they just brand that they're in solar, but they never say what company they're with. Marketing is huge. People don't treat solar as a business most of the time. They treat it more as like a sales, right? Sales. And it's all about sales. But people don't realize there's a lot of aspects that make successful sales, right? Which is marketing, branding, having call centers, having door knockers, having all different types of lead gen so that you can actually succeed. And so started doing that. Obviously had my obstacles with that because when I first founded, one of the installers I was working with they promised amazing timelines and the timelines took like 6-7 months.
Oh my gosh.
So I had already gotten screwed over right before that out of a lot of money. And then my installers were taking forever. So I was just running dry. I was just on credit cards, just going crazy, just spending on my credit cards and hoping I'll come out successful the other end, right? And believe it or not, I pushed through and I did, right? And so that's when the self-doubt started fading away, right? Because I was fighting with myself and I was thinking, okay, should I go find a normal engineering job and forget solar? Because I'm not getting paid. I'm in credit card debt. I'm struggling here. And I'm like, okay, this is it. But like, am I really the person who failed? And then I realized failure is only when you give up.
That's true.
And there's no different way of failing up until you give up, right? So if you don't give up, you can only come out successful the other end. There's no other way. It's either give up and fail or keep on pushing and succeed. And that's how I see the world. And that's how I started believing in myself more, priming my own brain to think that if somebody else did it, I can do it. And that's what I always tell myself now, whenever the self-doubt starts trickling in, because it still does. I mean, everybody, I think, in solar still has self-doubt at some point.
For sure.
What's going to happen to the industry? What's going to change? What if everything ends? PPAs end. The utility companies drop their rates significantly, and then we're like sitting there, okay, what are we going to do now, right? But you realize that if somebody else did it, I can do it, and I can do it better. That's what I like to think.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Well, dude, I wanna follow up on a couple things there because you have so many good things in that story. That's incredible, all the stuff you've been through.
Thank you.
But yeah, I mean, first of all, like growing up in Lebanon and everything. So this, you said it was a bomb that like went off.
Yeah. So in the capital of Beirut.
Okay.
We don't know really what happened. Apparently, there was some ammonium nitrate stored in the wrong place, and it caught on fire, and it just blew up. And the blow up was insane. I mean, my grandparents' house got demolished. Thankfully, they were okay. We got there. My grandpa's literally under this. In Lebanon, like the main entrance doors are huge. They're super heavy. So we got there, and he was just under it. And he was just struggling, like not knowing what to do. And it was a whole thing. I mean, really, if you look up the videos, you'll see you'll think it's Hollywood. You'll be like, wow, this is like Newtown, or something like that. Yeah.
Wow. So is that what caused you to come over? Or were you already planning to come study here before? Or?
I was already planning on it, but then also with COVID. So at the time there was COVID. And so I was thinking, okay, maybe I'll stick around in Lebanon for a little, kind of maybe do online school or something. Yeah. My dream was always to come out here. My dad always used to tell us, I'm eventually going to send you out to America. Like the goal is always go out to the USA, like land of the dream, like land of the free. You can do so much over there, right? And I think one thing that I've realized is people don't see how much they have over here, right? When you're born and raised here, you don't realize the amount of stuff you're given and that's available to you, how easy it is to build something out of nothing, right?
Yeah.
Compared to in different countries, when you go to Lebanon, like it's a third world country, there's really nothing. We have zero support from the government. There's nothing whatsoever. The banks are collapsing. Like there's a financial crisis all the time. You can't even pull your money out. And there's just so much going on that you realize over here, when people kind of complain about the little stuff, I think to myself, like, this is nothing. Yeah. I mean, I've been through 100 times worse, you know?
Yeah.
So once you start being grateful for what you have, you start thinking, okay, I can succeed to this and this and that. So being grateful is one of the other biggest things for me, looking up to God and saying, because of the grace of God, I am here. I have achieved what I am capable of achieving up until now, and hopefully a lot more into the future,
Yeah. Well, yeah, especially growing up in a country like that. I mean, do you feel like that's been almost something that's helped you growing up in that, like third world country, having to, I'm sure, go through, maybe, I don't know what your situation was like, but I'm sure not a lot of money, things like that. Do you feel like that's helped you be more like resilient and push through like some of the obstacles you've been through now? Do you feel like just having that upbringing has helped you just know how to push through things better? Or?
Oh yeah, most definitely. So, being in a different country, you start to realize, because when you come out here, your whole goal at this point is to succeed, because you just left the country, you left everything behind. I mean, my parents are still there. I have 2 brothers that live there. All my friends are pretty much still there. So you start thinking in your head, okay, I just left everything behind. And I think that was the main driver for success for me. It was that now that I left everything behind, this is it. If I don't succeed, then I truly am a failure, because I was sent all the way out here. I mean, the flight to Lebanon, there's not even a direct flight, as a matter of fact. You have to literally stop in like one of the countries around there, like Turkey or UAE or something like that, Qatar or anything. And then that's where you kind of go from there to Lebanon. It's like a total flight time is about 22 hours, Time difference is like 10 hours. And so it's like, you start thinking about that stuff, and every time I get out again, I start thinking again, I left everything, and here I am today, and I've achieved all that stuff. So there's nothing I need to be doubtful anymore. Once you achieve one little thing, you start realizing, if I can achieve that, it's rinse and repeat, right? You make your first 100K, you move on to your million. From a million, you move on to 10 million, obviously. I mean, I'm not there yet. Obviously, I hope I will be one day, but essentially you kind of move from one step to the other, and it's just rinse and repeat. You do it once, you maximize on what you did. Cool. When I made my money, I didn't take that and go spend it on dumb stuff. I literally reverted all of that back into the company, back into the dealer. And I said, boom, I'm going to reinvest, get more leads, get more call centers going, get people to call, cold call. Now we're working on an in-house call center instead, you know, so that we can diminish customer acquisition costs, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, but going back to your question, it was definitely one of the biggest drivers is leaving everything. So I will say, I've heard it a couple times, obviously, by a lot of people. They say, burn the bridges, right? Burn the bridges and just go for it. And I agree so much with that, because I was forced to burn the bridges. I didn't even have the option. And if it was up to me, I could say I would have probably never burnt the bridges. You know, if you were to just, I think the mental capacity you need to say, I'm going to go ahead and burn the bridges and just go from there, it takes a huge toll on you, right? Definitely. So huge props to everybody who actually pulls that up and said, okay, I'm going to burn the bridges, take a look at everything and say, boom, cut it off. I'm going to go forward from here and go into solar and do what I need to do.
Yeah.
And those are the people that usually succeed the most.
Definitely. That's why it's like, I don't know if you guys do like local recruiting, but for us, it's so hard sometimes to get local guys to like go and grind and everything, because they've got kind of their safety net. They're in their hometown. They got family there. They got other job opportunities. Where like, you know, I came from out of state to sell in California. You came from different kind of 22-hour plane ride away, which is like, you know, 10x what I did.
Right now.
So yeah, it's like, you know, I definitely see that people that come for the opportunity there, you're there to figure it out. And if you don't, it's like, it's kind of your only option.
Exactly. And on the recruiting topic, actually, I feel like one thing I've seen, at least from the company I was with, it was more like when we recruit in solar, it's more like, okay, let's just recruit as many people as possible, you know, and from there kind of recruit 100, one will stick around, you know. I like to do things differently. I recruit very slowly. I really focus on who I'm recruiting, who I'm bringing in. I like to bring in kind of the top performers, the people I know are capable of putting something into this. Just like you said, people who aren't really, you know, obviously I'm not discriminating by saying, oh, they still live at home, so I'm not going to hire them kind of thing, right? But it's more like I see the drive. I try and find the drive, even if some people don't promise you the world. I mean, I'm sure you've seen the recruiting process. You've done all of that. And you see that some people promise, oh, yeah, I'm the best guy. I'll be out there every day. And then, you know, a week later, they're pretty much gone, you know? So I try and find, instead of talent in door to door, I don't care if they have door to door experience or not. I kind of focus more on talent when it comes to the mindset, where they want to push themselves. They want to say, I'm going to be better and I'm going to do better. And that's the kind of people I have on my team right now. And I'm so happy about it. It makes me want to even push myself to be better. And that's something I learned from, again, Michael O'Donnell, is he used to say he never knocks by himself. He always has somebody with him, right? And that was a game changer for me, because I got to a point where sometimes I was like, I don't want to knock, you know? I mean, I had all these lead gen ways, I had call centers, stuff like that. I'm like, why even knock, right? I mean, there's no point. But then when I started recruiting people, I had to train them, right? I had to bring them out, say, let's go out, let's knock together, stuff like that. And I realized, okay, you know, if I can knock with people, it'll change stuff for me, because it pushes you to want to knock and do better. And as a matter of fact, I enjoy it now again, because I feel like not only am I knocking and getting appointments, I'm also, all that time that I'm putting into knocking is also benefiting somebody else. Right. So it's not benefiting myself too. I'm benefiting somebody who's right there next to me, training and learning and trying to become better. Yeah. And that's all I like to see. I want to see somebody who's willing to become better. That's the kind of people we love at the company at PPI. And that's the kind of people that usually stick around. You know, those are the only people that stick around. It's the people who know I want to push and be better. People who wake up early and hit the gym. They say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. I saw you just hit 75 hard, which is amazing. Congrats on that. I mean, I've done it a while ago. I haven't in a while, actually. I should maybe go back to it and kind of do it again. But yeah, that's the kind of mindset we look for, you know? Yeah, definitely. Got it. Definitely some common traits that you see in people that succeed with this, you know, like competitive people, people who work with teams. We got a lot of like military guys, you know, ex-Navy, stuff like that do really well with us. But yeah, common traits. But another thing I wanted to ask about, Thierry, like you come from a different country. It sounds like you're coming for school, but were you
were you pretty nervous coming to a different country? Like, I mean, I can imagine hopping on a plane for 22 hours by yourself coming out here. That would be. I mean, I lived in Colombia for a couple of years. That's not even like crazy far, and I was nervous just going to Colombia.
Yeah,
but like coming here. So what was it like coming here from a different country?
dude, I was 17 at the time. I wasn't even 18 yet, right? Like technically not even an adult yet, right? So I was 17. It was COVID too. So COVID really even made it 100 times harder, right? Yeah. So I think the most amount of anxiety I ever felt was kind of going on the plane to come here. You know, I have 2 suitcases with me. It's all I got.
I've been by yourself? No.
Yeah. Nobody else. I was by myself. I remember my dad was driving me to the airport, and at the time, because the bombing had just happened, everybody was talking like, do not fly out. There's a risk. Maybe there's going to be a bomb at the airport, stuff like that. So, you know, we get a lot of that all the time, but I mean, you get used to it with time, right? Like for us, it's not even that serious anymore. Okay, obviously it is, don't get me wrong, but you know, you kind of get used to it. So it's more of like you adapt to it, right? And I think that's one of the things that helped me a lot is I was able to adapt to so much there that when I came here, I was able to adapt quickly. And so I have an uncle that lives out here, and he told me when I first moved here, he said, you know, one of your best traits is that you're always smiling. You're always optimistic. That's how I like to be. I just want to be optimistic about anything. I'm really the glass half full kind of guy, you know? So like I see something happen, I'm like, well, okay, that happened, but you know, this came out of it, you know, and it could be anything. Even when I got screwed over by installers, in my head, I was like, well, okay, that means I know for a fact I'm never going to work with those installers again. So later down the road, when I have even more in the pipeline, I'm not going to get screwed over because I know which installers to work with, you know? So that's kind of the mindset I have, where I'm just always optimistic about everything I'm looking at. But yeah, I mean, 17, getting on that plane, it's 22. So I had 4 hours to Qatar and then another 16 over here. And the whole time I'm just like, I have a face shield on, the mask, you know, it was peak COVID at the time. I'm like super scared of catching COVID. And I'm like sitting there and I'm like, you know, it was just anxious, like anxiety. I felt like I want to throw up all the time, you know? And I got here. I have a brother that lives here. So he had moved here before me. He's 3 years older. So that helped definitely a lot because there was somebody I knew at least.
That's good.
But yeah, we ended up getting an apartment together, stuff like that. So that helped a lot because he kind of knew the game. He knew how to handle things, stuff like that. But yeah, definitely a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, but on the other end, it came out so positive because it taught me so much, you know? I think it was somehow I wouldn't say traumatic experience, but a little bit of trauma here and there where it's like you're stressed out all the time. And so I think that trauma builds personality, right? And pressure makes science. And so I think combining all of that together, you start realizing that anytime you go through something, if you can look at it in the positive way and say, I'm going to come out better the other end, you do come out better. You know, if you just manifest that and think about it and keep on pushing yourself to say, I'm going to come out better, it ends up happening.
Yeah. So then, did you learn English in Lebanon?
Yeah. So when I first moved here, I definitely had a heavy accent, you know?
Yeah.
But I took English my entire life in Lebanon. So they kind of teach you French, English, and Arabic.
Oh, well.
Your whole kind of, not just high school, it's like elementary school, middle school, and high school. Every year you have to take all 3 languages. It's like mandatory.
That's cool.
So you kind of get to learn that, but obviously you learn it, you know, with an accent because all the teachers are from Lebanon. So they're teaching me English with like that heavy accent. So I came out here. That was definitely one of the obstacles, but I didn't think it was too hard to learn it because I used to come here every now and then. I mean, our parents would bring us out here for vacation. So yeah, I used to come out here. I kind of learned it, picked it up with time, and pretty much about a year in was when I kind of had it fully down. And I was just, you know, good at it, I guess.
It's good. Speaking better than I do, I think.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
But they speak Arabic, like the main language out there?
It's my first language. I mean, I talk to my parents almost every day. I speak to them in Arabic. My brother's here. I talk to them in Arabic, and it's helped me actually because I tapped into the Arab community. Right? I think
that's probably huge. Sell Arabic.
Exactly, and so the Arabs are very, very hard to sell. I will say, for one reason, because they just want the best deal, right? They want to feel like you're giving them a good deal, and so kind of brings me into, if we want to talk a little more about like actual selling, right?
Yeah.
I feel like there's three types of customers, at least for me, and that's how I teach my closers.
Okay.
There's three types. There's what I like to call the generic type. That's 99% of people where you walk in there, you do your full presentation, right? You show them pre-utility rate, post-utility rates, like how much they're going to save with the PPA, kind of the no money down, stuff like that. And you get that sale from there. You've got your price shoppers, which that's when I use the line. Actually, I heard it on your podcast after, but I had already been using it, which is so funny. It's the Expedia line, right? When I say, I go like, have you heard of Expedia? Like, I'm your Expedia for solar, right? And it was so funny when I heard it on your podcast. I was like, dude, no way. Like, I literally say that, you know? Yeah. So I use that line a lot. That's your price shopper. I like to think, at least for me, what I've seen the most success with is forget the presentation. I just walk in there. You can tell. I mean, from the very start, you kind of, when you do it enough, you start to realize, okay, this is this type of customer, this is this type of customer, right? And so you just have your price shopper where I just walk in there. I'm like, listen, I know you've talked to 100 people already, and you've seen so many different bids. What's your best offer up until now with the best material? What are you looking for? Tell me, and I'll see if I can match it or make it better. I keep it so simple. I'm in there for 30 minutes, and trust me, people love it so much because you build that instant trust where they know you're not in there to sell them really. You're in there to take care of them. And what I've seen from that is, yeah, maybe I won't make too much commission off of that. You won't, right? When you're price shopping, you're just sliding somebody else on commission, right?
Yeah.
And you get to the point where maybe you'll make $500, $1,000 on a 10 kilowatt system. Yeah. But to me, I still think those are so worth it because the referrals you get from that.
You get referrals, yeah.
Exactly. It changes the game. So that's what I base it off of. I tell them, listen, I can get you this deal on one condition. Write me down some referrals. And they love that. They like it. And it's a win-win for everybody. Yeah, you'll make $500 on this one, but guess what? The next people they refer to you, they're not even in the price shop anymore because they trust you to give them the best deal, right? And so that's where you're just like, perfect. I'm just going to lock in, show them what it is. Oh, and from there, you're just getting deals on end. And that's like your whale customer, right? Which is like what they call them, right? So I start getting so many referrals and that $500 turns into $30,000, $40,000 because I sold 6 different deals, you know? And so, yeah, I feel like that's another thing that I didn't do at the start where I was like, oh, I'm only making 500. I would kind of bail on the deal, you know, kind of forget about it. I sold $500, it's whatever, right? But then I realized once I started focusing on every single sale, like it's the biggest sale of my life, I started making a lot more money, even though it was smaller commissions sometimes, right? Because I started getting so many referrals. I have this one guy, dude, I am not even kidding. I think he's already referred me at least 20 people. Right. And he keeps on referring because I tapped into this, it was like a Vietnamese guy. Okay. And he knows this entire Vietnamese community. And he went to, he was looking at a bunch of prices and stuff like that. I ended up making $200 on his deal. I remember like $200 on a 15 kilowatt system. Yeah.
Killer deal.
Killer deal for him, right? For me, I was like, damn, like I really missed out. But then he got me, I think, I mean, I haven't counted them up until now. It's been, you know, a year since he's been referring people, but I've gotten like 20 deals from this guy. Wow. And I'm like, you know, this changed the game for me, right? I started realizing the power of referrals. In my head, I always used to focus on new lead. Referrals were really everything. And then you have your third type of customer, which is, I like to think of them as like the rich customer, the engineers, stuff like that, where they want to know the spec sheets. They want to have everything. Like they want to see exactly what kind of battery, what the battery's made of, the panels. They want to know what it is you're doing, kind of the cost of the battery compared to the cost of the system, compared to the cost of install, stuff like that. That's where being an expert comes in, right? That's where have the spec sheet ready. It's so easy to go on Google and look up, you know, whatever panels you use and look up the spec sheet, have it in your files saved up. And I just, as soon as I'm done, I send them all the spec sheets. They love that. That's when you build the trust and they're like ready to sign up with you, even though those are the customers where I build value rather than sell cheap, right? I don't want to sell cheap to people. I want to build value. I want to show them that we are the best of the best because we know what we're talking about. We're not in there to pitch you something. I'm not there to show you a presentation, show you the savings, and that's it. That's 99% of people. But then you've got your 1%. Well, if you miss out on your 1% every single time, it adds up. That's what people in solar, I feel like, sometimes don't realize, is that your 1% does add up a lot, because you're making a lot of money off of every single deal. Not a lot of industries have that.
Yeah.
And so when you kind of realize that if I can even get those 1%, that's when I'm really going to maximize what I'm doing in solar.
So good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love, to your point about just being an expert and knowing the stuff, like, I know we talked about ChatGPT earlier, but AI, there's really no excuse for not to have an answer with pretty much everything.
Exactly.
I remember when I first started in solar, it's like we'd have to text, a manager, and if he was in a point, if we didn't know something, we text the manager. If they were busy, then we're just like, sorry, I can't get an answer to this. And there wasn't, I don't really think there were spec sheets and stuff like that were easily found either back in 2016.
Yeah.
When I started, but now I was in a deal the other day and the customer had like a specific question about like a line in the contract. I'm like, I have no idea what this means. So I just took a picture of it in ChatGPT, said, hey, explain this for my customer and give us like examples, and it explained like exactly what they're talking. It was some line where like I think it was a Everbright customer, and it's some line where they didn't enforce something in the contract one time, then that doesn't mean that they can't enforce it in the future. Like, for example, if there's a late fee or something that they didn't charge the customer one time, they could charge it to them in the future. Okay. So it wasn't like exempting them from late fees in the future, but it explained it in like a super confusing way.
Okay.
But yeah, it's just like stuff like that. It's so easy now. Just take a picture and say, explain this, as if you're talking to a 5-year-old for sure.
No, exactly. Exactly.
Because I'm not like a super, analytical person. I think you have a huge advantage being like engineer degree, knowing how to speak to those people.
Yeah.
But I think so many times we get in the habit of selling people that's like, oh, this is our customer. I know I can sell this person. But then if it's another type that's a harder sell or engineer or whatever, like, it's never going to buy. And then we try less. So I've noticed myself, I do that sometimes. Like, it's like, oh, this person's going to be a hard sell, shopper, I'll forget about it. Just on to the next one. Mm-hmm. So yeah, so powerful. Just know your customer types, know how they want to be sold. And then, like you said, even if you're making less money, then just doing the give and take, getting some referrals from it. Exactly. Because I've noticed, especially people with different cultures, like Indians are another example.
Oh, yeah.
They, same thing. They love to barter. They love to know they're getting the best deal. Mm-hmm. And if you can sell one of them, there's almost everyone, they're connected to like, tons of different Indian families.
Yeah, funny enough, that's how I learned the give or take thing, or the referrals thing. So when I first moved to the Bay, so I was in Southern California selling first. And then once I built the team there, I moved up to Northern California to start building a team up there, right? And I realized in the Bay Area, Northern California, everybody who's up there, they know that there's a huge Indian community, huge, right? Because it's the tech area. Yeah. Everybody's working in tech. So I could never crack them. And I was like, what am I doing wrong? And I realized what I'm doing wrong is presenting. That was the wrong thing. I would walk in and present and do a whole thing, right? And I realized if I literally just walk in there, tell it how it is. I say, listen, what's your best offer? Because I know they've already shopped around at this point, right? What do you have that's the best thing? And give that to me, show it to me. I do say one very important thing is make sure they show you an official proposal. Oh, yeah. Because I have had a lot of them at the start where I didn't realize it. They would tell me something and I would kind of trust them on it, and they would lie. And that's where I really got screwed over with my commissions, where I was making barely 500 when I could have realistically made maybe 5,000, Right. But yeah, so I do ask for official proposals and I say, show me what you got and I'll get you something better. Right. And that it leads into just it's a domino effect where you just get a bunch of opinions after. And same thing with all different cultures. Once you get one person, you just tap into the entire rest of the culture. Yeah.
That's so good. Secret for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, dude, it's been awesome to see how much you've grown. So your team, you just got one team in Southern California now? You guys Northern California too?
So yeah, one team in Southern, and then in Northern so I've been in Northern for about 6 or more like 8 months now. So I'm growing the team over there. So what I'm planning on doing, what I like to do is kind of grow a team in an area, have some leaders that can just lead the team, do the best, because I teach them everything I have. I just lay everything onto them. And I say, again, rinse and repeat. Replicate what I did to you, replicate it with other people. And I move on from this area and I move to the next. So that's my plan. I want to eventually become nationwide. That's a real ultimate goal. You know, I feel like I'm young. I feel like I have that ability, the energy to be like, I'm just going to do this, do that, run around, jump. You know, I don't really have that many responsibilities yet whatsoever. Obviously, you know, I'm still at the start. So I think that's a huge advantage for me, at least, where I can just jump around, go everywhere, do what I need to do so that by the time I'm like, you know, 30, 35, I could just relax, kind of have a whole business running and go from there, you know? So now we're working on the NorCal team. I've got about 8 people up there now that I'm training. And we're going from there, seeing how it goes. I will say the Bay is an amazing market compared to Southern California. At least to me, it felt like it was way less saturated. Even though it's still California, for some reason, it felt like it was less saturated. Now, it might be because I had the experience, so I kind of got better at it, and I felt like it was less saturated. But no, I mean, even my new recruits feel like it's an easier way of selling, I will say. So if you want to come up to the Bay, I would definitely recommend that. But essentially, build a team, move on to the next area, build a team there, and again, rinse and repeat.
Love it. It's funny. We've got people. I'm in San Diego, but we've got people that go up to the Bay, like, you know, every month type thing. So up there and sell. And I've actually never sold up there, but I'm like, man, maybe I need to go up there.
Dude, I mean, even the rates there they're the highest rates. Even SDG&E is lower than PG&E. Which is crazy.
I watched we release this podcast, and all of a sudden everyone just went up to the Bay.
I know that is way more saturated, and I regret even saying anything. You know,
wait till after.
Now I have 10 times the competition for no reason. I know what you mean.
But no, I think it's true though. If you can sell Southern California, it's like you should be able to sell anywhere. Places that are saturated. So that's why, you know, I think once you learn the skills, you can get sales anywhere. But it's like being able to pivot to different areas, different cultures, knowing your thing. For me, it's all, I got family, and that's what's so cool. You're young, you don't have kids or anything. I got 3 kids now, and so it's a little bit tougher to, like, you know, be as mobile, move around, go to different areas. That's one thing I wish I would have done more when I didn't have kids, and, you know, we got a house and everything now. But so if you're listening and if you're a young guy like Thierry here, then make sure you're putting in the reps, grinding, because it's just so much easier when you have less responsibilities and just pack up and go anywhere.
I bet.
So that's awesome. You've been able to build like that. But man, just last couple of questions before we start wrapping up here, Thierry. So you mentioned you had that 80K month. Which was that the first month you started closing?
Literally first month closing, and it's all because I took the time to educate myself, right? And I would, like, after every appointment, I would sit there and I would record my appointments, my sit downs. I'd go back to them like every single time. I would religiously do that, you know, and I'd sit down and say, okay, what did I say here that made them say this, so that I could end up closing the deal? And so if you take the moment to really learn. If you take one solid month to say, I'm going to learn as much as possible from every single appointment I sit at, I think anybody could be a beast closer within a month. Anybody.
That's so good. But that attention to detail, it's like, I don't really know anyone that's that level of, like, analysis, recording every appointments. So no wonder you had so much success. And you mentioned that you were studying like crazy. You were making flashcards. You're like, sounds like you're pretty much treating it like a college course that you needed to, like, you had a big test coming up that was like make or break.
Exactly.
Like, I gotta get it down.
That's how it was.
That's a cool mentality, man. It's no wonder you had success. Like, I came from before I did solar, I was a music major. It's like we were expected to practice our instruments like minimum 2-3 hours a day, plus rehearsals. And so that's another thing I feel like I took from being in college, is just like, okay, I had to practice an instrument. I've come to this. Why are so many people not practicing their craft of, like, selling? And a lot of people are just showing up, going to appointments, learning from experience, like you mentioned. But the ones that I think truly take off and have the success, they're doing things like you're saying. They're studying like crazy. They're taking notes. They're learning from their appointments. And it's cool to hear that, because especially as you get experience, sometimes you forget about those things too. Like, man, I need to go back and do that too. Because I think I'm leaving money on the table,
and I do that so much. Yeah, I do that so much. I do. Like, I go back to my. Sometimes with time you start to forget stuff you used to say. And so I go back to my notes and I'm like, like I used to say that, and it worked amazingly. So I agree with that.
Yeah. So just to wrap up here, if someone wants to, I know you're training other closers now. So what are some things you found success to replicate? Because not everyone comes in as hungry as you. I know you can't force people to go out and do all these things outside of it. I mean, create a culture, but what are some things that helped you replicate the success you had? And I don't know, what would you tell someone that wants to have an 80K month?
Yeah.
You're like, I want them first month 80K. It's incredible. Yeah. So what are some things you do with your team?
Great question. So what I would say, number one, believe it or not, we don't even have an office space. I do all my trainings virtually. The reason for that is because every single training is recorded, right? And I realized really that, an office can somewhat create a culture, but you can still create that same culture almost all virtual, right?
You don't want the pool table and the ping pong. That's what recruited you.
Right? Exactly. It did, believe it or not. But that's what I was saying, that it backfired later, where I was given the wrong expectations.
Yeah,
exactly. And so I felt like doing it virtually, it helped so much more. And first of all, being able to really scale. So it's a much easier way to scale than being in person. Number one. Number two, you don't waste time, driving to an office and then driving out to the field. And one thing I noticed when we were back at the office is that all the time what would happen is people would hang around the office for way too long, And yes, that's fun every now and then, but instead of doing that, what we do is team bonding experiences. We go out, we have dinner, we go to Top Golf, all of that good stuff. So we still do all of that. We do all the team bonding and culture building just without having an office space, because the office space I felt like was wasting a lot of time, where people are hanging around, driving there, traffic. I mean, LA has crazy traffic. The Bay Area, same thing, crazy traffic. So it really eats up a lot of the time. Instead, people could be out there experiencing the doors, right? But what I would say is, number one, obviously focus a lot on going back to what you said. Record everything, analyze, go on there. I mean, the reason why I did that is because of school, because I would listen to lectures and kind of write down my notes, and that's how I learned, right? So I kind of had that same mentality with solar. Treat it as a course, even though it is sales and it's fun and it's exciting. And I love it. Don't get me wrong. I still treat it as sales. But there is that small aspect where, if you think about it, when you go and start a normal job, right, you always have your first month of training, really, where all you're doing is sitting down at a computer. It's super boring. You do it, though, to learn what you need to do at that job, right? People in solo, I feel like, never do that. And yes, experience is huge. And I do agree, you have to be out at the doors. And I tell all my setters and closers, be out there, perform, get the experience at the doors. But more importantly, in the morning, when you wake up after a sales call, sit down and kind of learn. And what we talked about at the sales call, I record all the meetings so that after that, I can have them there for my reps ready so that they can watch it again and again and again and role play with each other. I set up a lot of role plays. Oh, that's one thing. Another thing we do is pair people up. So we always send people out in pairs rather than solo, because what that does is both people are just going to push each other to do better, especially when you're first starting. You kind of at the start, you're like, you get tired, your first 3 hours, you're sweating, you're dying, it's hot out there and you're just knocking doors and you're getting a bunch of no's. And so you kind of had the mindset shift and you're like, this is not real, kind of the momentum dies, stuff like that. When you have a buddy knocking on the other side of the street, instantly pushes you to do better and want to be better, because you're like, I don't want to be the one that's not doing good, right? I don't want to be the one that's competing with somebody else and losing. I have a huge competitive winner mindset. I want to be the best of the best. I do think it was ingrained in me back when I was trying to be class valedictorian all the time, and I'd be like, I'm going to push myself to be better. I want to be number one no matter what. I think that's one of the biggest mindsets you need to have if you want to have an 80K month. That's where you want to say, okay, if I meet 50, I'm pushing for 100. Even though I have 1 week left out of the month. So I was at 60 by the first 3 weeks. I had 1 week left. And I said, I'm going to push for 100. And I technically got it in the pipeline, that ended up getting paid out on all of that. But yeah, that's where you want to create competition. So I created a lot of competitions. a lot of incentives. That's the one way to do it virtually, I guess, is because you don't have like the office culture. The people that are there present all the time. Instead, I create a lot of incentives, weekly incentives, monthly incentives, yearly incentives even. So right now I was talking with my team. A lot of them are into soccer, and the World Cup is coming up, and it's going to be in the US. So we have an incentive coming up where we're going to, like, for the yearly goal, it's going to be whoever, gets the most amount of closes is going to get a World Cup ticket.
Let's see.
Yeah, which is huge, but it drives people. It makes them want to do better and be better, I think incentives is definitely one of the biggest things, and competition, dude. Yeah. Just build competition. Let them, I want them to be hungry. I feed off of the hunger. Yeah. I tell people at the doors with us, when I'm knocking the door, I always say, when you've got your parents that come out and they're super upset and they're like, knock on my door, you didn't see the no listening time, stuff like that. And I love those are the people I perform the best with, because right after I always end up getting them. I have my ways of, kind of sweet talking them into listening to me. But then after that, I kind of look at whoever's training with me, like set or close or whatever it is, and I tell them, you see what just happened there? Most of them, when they first start, they look at me and they say, yeah, I mean, dude, like, why? How would you do that? How did you do that? Like, I'd be so scared. I say, dude, I feed off of that hunger. I feed off of the fact that if they're mad, I take that energy and I just literally let it drive me to just want to make it happen. I want an appointment just because they're mad. Like, in my head, I'm like, if they're being really nice, that's an easy appointment. There's no challenge. And so one of my favorite quotes is, when faced without a challenge, make it. And I live by that truly, I like to create something just because that's what drives me. For me, I feed off the challenge. I feed off the hunger, the fear, the no's, the people saying, oh, what are you doing here? Get off my property, stuff like that. Those are the people that are the best. And I have a story, I know we're wrapping up, but it's about that. So I had a guy come out once, right? And I knocked on his door. He has two huge dogs. I don't even know what they were, like Dobermans or something. And they're like wrapped up in chains, literally two of them. And he's like holding them on chains. He comes out, he's like, what are you here for? I'm like, oh, I mean, yeah, you got full dogs. He's like, are you to sell solar? I was like, I mean, dude, yeah, no, like, I'm here about the notice, blah, blah, blah. He's like, you're about solar, right? You want me to release these dogs on you? Dude, I'm not even kidding.
I'm getting this though.
And I looked at him, I said, if it gets you to do solar, release them. And he loved that line. I'm not even kidding. He loved it. So I ended up getting an appointment out of it. He loved me.
Did you tell him?
I did, actually. Or no, sorry. He ended up, he credit failed or something. Actually, yeah.
Okay.
That was a while ago. No, he credit failed for sure. He credit failed, yeah. But essentially, after I said that, he loved it so much. He liked me because I cracked a joke out of it. He was like, you're the first guy who's ever said something funny. Like let's talk. What do you got for me? And I talked to him. He was like, damn, bro, I guess I should have been listening to you guys, like, to you solar guys, because it seems like this is going to help me out. I was like, yeah, bro, like, you just got to qualify for it. If you qualify, great. If not, I mean, no harm, no foul, if you can't get it done. So I really try and sell the problem rather than the solution. Right? I sell the problem. That's what I teach my setters to, my closers. Sell the problem. Forget the solution. Yes, solar is the solution, but sell the problem. That's what my whole presentation is mostly about. It's mostly about how the utility is screwing them over, how much money they're wasting, all of that. And by the end, I'm really priming them the whole time that we got to get you qualified. We got to get you qualified. So that by the end, I assume the sale. I never even asked. And that's what really drove my success and what taught me that it's going to be the best. That's your 99% that I was talking about, where you want to just assume the sale down to the T. The whole time, every like 10, 15 minutes, bring up the fact that none of this is real up until you qualify. Right? And so by the end, you're at the part where, boom, let's get you qualified. I show them the options. I say, look at that. You've got two options. You've got your utility, you've got solar. Which one do you like best? Like, obviously, which one makes more sense? You want to almost make them feel dumb if they say PG&E or sorry, utility, like whatever utility you're with. I'm with PG&E right now, but essentially I show them both and I say, okay, which one looks better? Obviously, they're like, yeah, solar. And I'm like, well, let's see if we can get you qualified. And that was a big game changer. That was the one line that really changed the game for me, where I never had that pushback anymore. Where they're like, no, I want to think about this. Number one. Number two is the contract stuff, right? Never call it a contract, ever. a super scary
word, yeah.
Obviously. So another thing too is I find like a lot of reps out there, they like to kind of push through the contract as fast as possible and kind of make them click through it. I don't do that. I kind of sit there with them. And I want them to read the whole thing, because if they don't, they're going to cancel the next day. Yeah. And that's why our cancellation rates are so low. It's because we sit there and we go through it. Now you've got your people who will click through it because you built so much trust. I mean, I'm at the point where 90% typically just click through it without me even asking them, because they trust me, right? But yeah, those are kind of the little things. So assume the sale, read through the application. I call it application all the time. Read through the application with them. Let them know that you're there, ready to answer questions. Because if you just sit there and you're kind of pushing them to do it, the next day they're probably going to go through it and they're going to cancel it because they thought something that's good. Yeah. And all of the work you did would have been for nothing.
Yeah. What happens, like, if you go through it with them and they feel like they understand it, then 90% of the time they're never going to pull up that document again. So they're like, oh, Thierry went through it with me. I understand what's going on. I don't need to do anything else. But if they're feeling rushed, or like they don't understand, or you went through it quick, then they're probably going to pull it up the next day. They're going to see something they don't understand, and then either it's going to cause you to probably have to go back, or they're just going to cancel it, because confused mind always says no, right?
Exactly.
Confused about stuff.
Exactly.
So good in so many things. But yeah, I think the overall point that, yeah, I just love how you have that drive, competitive mindset. So those are definitely traits of people that have success with this. So if you're listening and you feel like you're not a competitive person, just buy in. Whatever incentive your companies, I see people that like, oh, companies are in a competition, whatever, they don't buy in. But those people, I think they're shooting themselves in the foot. Even if it's something like little, just do it for like, it makes the job much more fun. I think just buying into competition, whatever incentives are going on.
Yeah.
So definitely so many secrets.
Yeah.
Well, dude, it's been awesome having you on. And if people want to connect more with you, Thierry, or ask more questions, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, I say Instagram. I mean, I've got my handle and the company's handle. So mine is just my first name _ last name, Thierry _ Boutros. Or the company handle is Pure Power Innovations. Just the name of the company, Pure Power Innovations with an S at the end. Yeah. So yeah, we've got the blue badge on there. You'll know it. You'll know it's us pretty much. Yeah, so definitely connect with us. If you're coming up to the Bay, I would highly recommend it. We do all of our trainings virtually. It's easy, simple, and yeah, from there, hopefully you'll grow. I'll teach you everything I have. I don't like to keep any secrets at all. I literally give out everything. Thank you. I say go out there and do the best you can, you know?
Yeah. Thank you, brother. Yeah. And then last question, if say someone's having a hard time, hopefully they didn't lose 200 grand, like they couldn't get paid out on.
Yeah.
But yeah, what's something that helped you just push through those hard times? Because so many people, they have a challenge come up, or they don't get paid at whatever. The company screws them. Most people just quit, especially for that much money. Most people quit, move on to, I don't know, different industry, whatever.
Yeah.
So I know you brought up a few things, but maybe what's one thing that helped you push past some of those challenges and still have the drive to stay in solar where other people will just quit?
Great question. I would say really the biggest thing for me was essentially saying, again, not giving up, the glass half full thing. Yeah. But the real thing is more really finding a solution, right? So when I got screwed over, what I did is I found another installer. I went back to all of my customers, at least every single one that wasn't installed yet or stuff like that, pipeline stuff that I could still make switches to. Yeah. I would just go back there and re-sign them, right? And yes, I didn't recoup everything. Maybe I recouped, maybe 30% of it or something. But at the end of the day, I got something back. So what I'll say always is never, ever give up. Try and find a solution. If you just look a little further in, dig a little deeper, you're always going to find something. There's always some sort of a solution. I like to believe that. My dad's a lawyer, so he always, he's teaching that there's always a loophole. There's always something you can go through to make it work, to figure out an answer, right? And so, yeah, that's what I would say. Just do the research to figure out what your solution is going to be to whatever your specific problem is. It's getting screwed over, simple. Go find there's hundreds of installers. I mean, back then maybe it was hard to find one, but now, there's literally we're at SolarCon right now, and if I look around, I can already see maybe like 20 installers. So it's so simple to find another installer, transition all your deals over to them, forget about what happened before. Take whatever you already have. You already have the advantage of they're sold. They're ready to go. They want it.
Yeah.
So all you have to do is switch them over. And to switch them over, come up with something, a reason why. Let them know, hey, listen, that installer has better reviews actually, so I'm going to switch you over and I'm going to keep you at the same price. Or even give them a little discount. Give them a little incentive to switch them over so that you don't lose that trust, right? Where you're saying, oh, I'm going to switch you over because this happened with the other installer. Obviously, don't tell them that. You want to tell them like, hey, I actually found a better option for you. I'm going to get you $1,000 Visa gift card and I'm going to switch you over to a better installer.
Nice.
Boom. From there, they like you even more, and now they're going to want it. They're going to want to give you even more referrals because even though you already have trust, you build even more trust.
Yeah.
So that's what I would do.
Awesome. Fire, brother, fire.
Yep.
So guys, be solution oriented. Have that glass half full mindset. Those are the people that are having the most success. So thank you for dropping some bombs for us on the podcast today.
Of course, thanks for having me.
Literally living through a bomb in your home country.
Yeah.
Let's take the bombs. So it's been awesome, and man, excited to see what you guys got next. We'll have to have you on in the future. Welcome back.
I will. Thank you, Taylor. It's an honor to be here, and I appreciate you having me.
Thanks, brother.
All righty.
I appreciate it.